Hey Star Trek fans, Dan Gunther here with another episode of Dan's Disco Deep Dive, looking at the Easter eggs, hidden bits, canon connections, and theories for Episode 6 of Season 2 of Discovery, The Sound of Thunder. The Sound of Thunder was written by Bo-Yeon Kim and Erica Leipold, and directed by Douglas Arniakowski, the same team that brought you the Short Treks episode, The Brightest Star. In this episode, Discovery travels to Kaminar, Saru's home planet. The name of Kaminar was first mentioned in the Saru Discovery novel, Fear Itself by James Swallow. We learned more about the planet and the great balance between the Kelpians and the Ba'ul in the Short Treks episode, The Brightest Star. Since Saru left the planet 18 years ago, a number of changes have occurred. His father, Eridar, has gone through his Viharai and been culled by the Ba'ul, and Saru's sister, Sirana, has taken up the mantle of village priest in his place. Most of the Kelpians wear this nifty grey number, while Sirana, as the village priest, wears the same white robes that Eridar did in The Brightest Star. Speaking of The Brightest Star, The Sound of Thunder was apparently shot at the same time as that Short Treks episode, using the set constructed on location to represent Saru's village. The huts that make up the village were modeled on the Kelpian makeup for Saru and other members of his species, exhibiting the same textures and surface details. Also in The Brightest Star, we see Lieutenant Georgiou land a shuttle to pick up Saru. On the hull, it clearly says SHN-03, indicating that the shuttle is from the USS Shenzhou, the ship that Georgiou would later go on to command. However, in this episode, Saru states that Georgiou was a lieutenant on the USS Archimedes at the time. Sure enough, when we see a brief flashback, the SHN has been removed from the shuttle. The red flowers of Kaminar are given a name in this episode, Fredalia. They were apparently named in honor of Frederick Kim, a friend of writers Bo-Yeon Kim and Erica Leipold, who passed away a few years ago. At one point in this episode, Burnham utters a famous Star Trek word.
Fascinating.
Fans of Star Trek will of course connect the word with Spock, who remarked that things were fascinating in pretty much every other episode of the original Star Trek series. We see another new uniform variant in this episode, a white undershirt that seems to be worn under Burnham's undercover on Kaminar garments. I'm sure we'll see it for sale in the Star Trek store soon, if it isn't already. The Ba'ul facility in which Saru and Sirana are held is a redress of the transporter room set. I initially was annoyed with how close it looked to the transporter room, but when the panels around the pool become transparent windows, I actually think the design really works. As I mentioned in my review video, the look and feel of the Ba'ul seems designed almost entirely to frighten both the viewer and the Kelpians. Their look is thanks to mostly practical effects, as well as the performance of famed horror movie actor Javier Botet. Somewhat reminiscent of Armus from TNG's Skin of Evil, the slimy Ba'ul is definitely disturbing, as are their ships, which definitely remind me of viruses or something similar. Speaking of the Ba'ul and their technology, the pillars that serve as the watchful eyes in each Kelpian village have a familiar shape. They look a lot like the preserver obelisks seen in the original series episode The Paradise Syndrome and the Discovery episode Context is for Kings. Are the Ba'ul or possibly the Red Angels related to the preservers? Or is this just a complete coincidence? My money is on coincidence, but you never know. Longtime Star Trek fans might know the name Mark Okrand. He's the primary force behind the development of the Klingon language and has even published the Klingon Dictionary. The Kelpian spoken in this episode and in The Brightest Star was developed by Mr. Okrand, and he is credited in this episode as Kelpian Language Consultant. This episode would seem to get its title from a Ray Bradbury short story, A Sound of Thunder, which is commonly credited with the idea of the butterfly effect. Could it be that Discovery's actions here on Kaminar will have unforeseen consequences in the future? Or is the title a little more on the nose? With the Red Angel possibly traveling through time, is this title more of a direct reference to the time travel shenanigans in A Sound of Thunder? Either way, I have to say I'm really enjoying the literary references that the Discovery titles are doing this season. Speaking of Discovery referring to literature, towards the end of the episode, Burnham cites a Greek playwright, Aeschylus, who is known as the father of tragedy. She quotes him, "He who learns must suffer, and even in our sleep pain that cannot forget falls drop by drop upon the heart." In many ways, this episode is a tragedy for the Baul. Well, that's all I have for Easter eggs this week. Are there any that I missed? Please leave them in the comments below. As usual, before I get to my theory this week, here are a few comments from viewers on last week's deep dive video on Saints of Imperfection. Jockadoobie says, "Why the wings? Probably some kind of Red Bull sponsorship tie-in. People are going to hate me for bringing this up, but I have a nagging desire to see the temporal Cold War from Enterprise factor into this season somehow. It was the Section 31 comm badge that put the idea into my head. Could Section 31 be getting technological support from someone from a later century? Probably not, but my head is spinning at the possibilities." I like the idea. I'm kind of loath to bring the temporal Cold War into this series. I know how much many fans disliked that aspect of Enterprise, and I don't see them wanting to repeat that. But again, you never know. We do have those mysterious tachyons floating around that could have something to do with time travel. They did pretty much acknowledge that in this episode, that it is time travel, so you never know. Gerald Rubin chimed in with a theory that I've seen a couple of places, and I really like it. I suspect the Red Angel is Zora, Discovery's AI of the future. Zora says she has spent time evolving herself. Could she be trying to right some wrong that led to Discovery being abandoned sometime in the future? So this comment refers to the Short Trek's episode Calypso, in which the Discovery is holding position in a particular location 1,000 years in the future, and it rescues a man who goes by the name of Kraft. And we learn a little bit about the AI controlling Discovery, who has spent that time evolving. Could this AI be the Red Angel? I really do like this theory. I think it has a lot of merit, and it would answer a lot of questions and raise several new ones, but also tie in that Calypso Short Treks, which to me was the most compelling of the Short Treks episodes, and I'd love to see how Discovery got there. I'm sure we will at some point in the series, and maybe that will tie into the Red Angel's identity somehow. And Paul Stauffer says, "The Red Angel is Melvin Belly from the TOS episode And the Children Shall Lead before he put on some weight." Oh, Paul. You know, a lot of people say that Spock's Brain is the worst episode of the original series, but no, it is And the Children Shall Lead. And props to you for bringing up that episode and tying it in. The character that Melvin Belly played in that episode was the Gorgon, or the Friendly Angel, as the kids in that episode called him. So, yeah, interesting connection there. I really hope to God not, and I'm sure it's not, but I did laugh at your comment. Thank you for that. For my theory this week, I'm going to borrow something that I saw on Reddit. A number of Star Trek fans think they know who the Red Angel is, and the fact that it was hinted at all the way back in the first episode of this season, Brother.
I bless you, Michael. All my life.
So, what do you think? Is Amanda the Red Angel? I mean, why not? Everyone else has been suspected of being the Red Angel. Why not Spock's mom? Well, that's it for this week's deep dive on Saints of Imperfection, but I want to hear from you. Let me know your thoughts on anything in this video, as well as your theories in the comments below. Thanks as always to the Patreon supporters for helping to bring this video to you. If you want to become a supporter of the channel, go to patreon.com/Kertrats, that's Kertrats. If you're not sure how to spell it, it's just Star Trek backwards. Thanks to everyone else for liking, subscribing, and sharing this video with anyone you feel would enjoy or appreciate it. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, let's all go violate General Order 1 together.